Welcome to the Seven Crosses series for Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. And we're picking up on the 28th of February 2017, which is roughly 7 months on from the end of the last video for a reason which I'll explain in a little while. But what I want to do first is say a big thank you for your comments and feedback. You guys give me a lot to think about. And I did get a couple of comments related to about how I was going to implement the new water update on this map. And this is going to be the reason why I'm making this video. So I'm not actually going to do any water implementation in this video. What I want to do is talk about three things. The first thing I'm going to do is give you a bit of an update of why we're 6 months on, because I found a few problems which I thought I needed to fix. The second one, we're going to switch the water on, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategy of how I'm going to try and implement the update, because that's one question I've been asked in the comments. Final part will be a destructive test, because one thing I've realized with doing various testing is that I'm not sure how long I've got before the economy implodes, and I think that's quite important about how I'm actually going to try and implement things across the map. But the first problem you can see is I've just loaded the game and I've had 3 vehicles disappear. Got absolutely no idea where those vehicles went. And just to give you an overview of where we want, I'll just let the game run forward. And part of the problem is my concern about crops, for a reason which I'll explain once I've shown the solution. So what I've done through the winter is I built this new large farm up here, and effectively I've set it up so that this season starts. Once we get to the start of the harvest, we'll get this out here, and I'm hoping this will produce a bit of extra crops which I'm going to need. And you can see it's not a min-max farm. I've just literally tried to squeeze in as many fields as possible that I could. I think I might be able to get another quick field in here. It's yeah, we could probably get field in here, but we'll have to use a mud road for it. So we'll just put this here. I'm just trying to get the maximum amount of crops that I can from the current situation, because I've got a feeling I'm going to need it. So you can see I've got a whole lot of fields here, but a lot of them are actually medium fields. So that is the first thing I needed to change. And the reason I needed to change this is that if I come over to here, is I've now got 3 chemical plants running with a reasonable amount of population in workforce in each one of these. I haven't switched on the 4th one because even despite the size of the town up here, I haven't been able to get a full workforce up here. I've also got now 2 sets of electrical components and electronics running on each side, but again you can see that the workforce is a little bit dispersed here. And then during the winter I run out of another problem, because my rail construction trains run out of electrical components. And if you watched the previous video, you'll be aware that I was celebrating that I'd reached self-sufficiency. Well, it didn't last long. So what I've done is I've set this up to create electrical components, which I've been sent over to here. And I can't remember which one is actually taking the electrical components, as there's probably never got anything out in here yet. And then what those have been done is sent out across the map to the rail construction offices. But to be honest, it's not exactly a top priority, but this is my full-size chemical production process, which is going to be a bit of a challenge. Now, when I was just running the game forward through the winter to build that farm, what happened was I had a bit of a collapse with respect to my meat supply, because what actually happened was that I couldn't get enough meat in here to distribute across the map. You can see I've fixed it now, because what I did was I've jacked up my technical offices here to make sure the roads stayed clear, and then I also built this distribution office here with another 4 refrigerated trucks. And that's the reason why that store over there is now full, because if I come back over to here, you'll see that I don't have actually a problem with meat production, because this one's a bit low, this one's 75, so we're producing the meat. And just to give you an example of how hard that hit, if I come to down to Colville here. If we come into here, I'll just show you this. You can see that the public happiness dropped down here to 54%. And what we've actually, you can see here, we got 184 people need meat and 227 need electronics. And that's the reason why I opened up the second electronics plant as well, because we've now got 3 electronics plants running, but trying to get that electronics across the map and get everybody happy is proving a little bit of a challenge. But there's not much I can do about it at the moment, except for just hope that it will spread across the map. I think this is one of the problems that, well, things could go wrong very quickly. So that is the current situation. Don't think there's anything else to... Oh, one thing I will show you is, if I show you the courthouse here, in the last part, you can see I had a big backlog of cases here. What I did is I actually finished off the courthouse over here. And this seems to be picking up the slack a little bit now. And it's also given a bit of employment in Ollerton. So I've managed to solve that problem. And I think I better start to address the elephant in the room, and that is the fact that no matter how much I ramble on giving you guys an update, we've got to go for the big thing, which is to switch on the water. And what I'm going to do is just enable it. Go here. And what you'll see is it says, are you sure you want to change? Yes. Now, because of the extent of the change for water, what the game is going to do is restart. But I think what happens is the devs actually create a temporary save. So when you do this, it means that your original save game that you load this session from isn't updated. So what we'll do is just click here. And what's going to happen is the game's going to automatically close down and restart. And I'll be right back when it's finished. And what I'm going to do is pause straight away. And we've now got water enabled across the bottom here. My strategy for moving this series onto water is that I've gone through and I've made a list of the towns on this map. And there's actually 10 towns on this. And one thing I'm aware of is the fact that I'm going to have to do all the infrastructure before I let the game run forward. But what I'm going to need to be very careful of is the amount of time. And that's the reason why the destructive test at the end. But I think for the purposes of giving you a bit of an overall strategy, I'm just going to run through quickly through the towns and actually try and work out what I want to do. Now, don't take this as a definitive strategy because it's all hypothetical in a very big sense. And what I'm expecting is that the first or possibly even the second attempt may go wrong. But what I am half planning is just doing one town at a time, saving the game, and then getting the auto build come in and put the structure together and then just test to see if it works. Then if that town works, I'll go back to the save game where everything hasn't built, then we'll move on to the next town. And I think it's worth saying, I'm not going to expose you guys to every single town on the map, but what I want to do is just try with different water systems. Now, the problem we've got here, in fact, this is first things first, let me just give you I want to see, because one of the first things we're going to have to do is find out the extent of the water coverage across here. And so it's not that bad, but it's going to be a little bit tricky trying to get, I suppose we could probably do it with 2, because these only actually need footpaths. But the real problem I've got is actually whether we could get enough water in from here. So what I'm considering is possibly I'm just putting a pump in here and then actually giving them water that may not be 100% pure. And the way my general strategy is going to be is, one, we're going to take a slightly Victorian approach to sewage disposal. What I'm going to do is dump as much as I can into the water untreated, but I will leave hooks to put treatment plants in. The reason for that is that I think trying to get the water treatment in place, this is sewage treatment, by the way, not actual pure water treatment, but the sewage treatment in place from the beginning could be a bit of a problem. So I'm going to avoid that and ignore it. And what we may have to do is dig a couple of ponds as a local dumping ground, because running the drainage pipes is going to be a little bit of a challenge. My strategy for Tourist Town would be to possibly pump in the water from a well, but dispose of the sewage to the border, because we're nowhere near the coastline. And I have tried getting a pipeline up to here, and because of the level, the type of terrain here, it's proved a little bit of a challenge. And the other option that I may use here is I might actually use where is it? Just put in here sewage substation here. I might use Nova's mod here, because this has got 900 cubic meters of storage. Because one thing I'm a little bit disappointed about is the fact that if you look at the water, we've actually got a underground water reservoir, and we got these water tanks. What we don't have is septic tanks. So what you end up with is a very immediate flow through to the actual loading unloading station, which would be here. But it's connected in real times to these very small containers here that only hold 12 cubic meters of water. So what I might do is try and take advantage of the of Nova's mod. Now this only has pipes going out. You can see there we can't actually put pipes in, but what it will do is we'll use the 900 cubic meters, and I'll probably use it on other places on the map as well, because what that will do is give an intervention store for, say, a key area. The only trouble is it's got a road connection, although the road connection we can turn to our advantage, because you can actually, because it's got a road connection, you can actually send trucks to it directly. So that is going to be the strategy for here, and it's also covering slightly the general strategy for the whole map. Now if we go across to Knife Edge, oh, so skipped Ollerton, sorry. Now Ollerton is going to be a real challenge, not so much from supplying the water, because again what I'm going to do is, because we don't have anything in here that's high quality, let's just have another little scope round. The problem is that we're going to have a lot of water out here, so we're probably going to need major water plants, which I'm thinking possibly somewhere where we can't find any pollution. We may actually put it up here. We got a bit of a, I'm not sure whether the actual, we got 6% pollution, we got 5% pollution around here. I think 5 is the best. I'm sure I got 4% pollution here. The problem is going to be, and another strategy I'm going to do is, in a lot of the big towns I'm going to have to pump the water. I'm not going to rely on gravity for supplying the water, because what I'm going to do is on the side of excess, I'm not going to try and build the perfect balance system. If I can get the economy settled and stable, then I can then work on refining the water supply system. But as far as I know, there isn't anything in this area where we're actually going to need good quality water, because I think I don't think these buildings will need it. What seems to happen is every building gets this added, and wherever somebody works, that gets added. So we've got to provide water. So like we'd have to provide water out here to the mines. It's, as you can see, and I think this is where spreading everything around to avoid pollution is going to be a little bit of a challenge. We're okay there. I mean, I'm not going to do this for every town in this video, as where I have an hour and 10 minutes of me showing. So trying to get the supply into here, we're probably going to need a large well, and this is where the capacity issue is going to be. The real problem with Ollerton is how we're going to dispose of the sewage. Again, what we may have to do is use the mod, and then we'll use trucks to try and send it across the map, but although we may try and overlay that way. Now if I come up to here, we got basically the same problem. Again, there isn't going to be anything here that's going to really need high quality water, because I don't think, I mean, it's a bit difficult to tell. You'd have to test the individual industries here. Now I know the chemical plants need water, and this is where the fun's going to be, as you can see that these have got require 34 tons of water, but there's no pipe connections for these. If I come in here, but I don't doubt very much whether the mod has been updated. I'm not going to get well, we'll just take a quick look. Yeah. Oh no, this one has got a water connection there, so we could rebuild this one with so some of them have already been updated, which is pretty good. But then again, we've still got the problem of getting that water connection in and rebuilding. But that will be something we'll have to do post afterwards. Now, I don't know if there's a... Says the water quality is 67%. So what we might be able to do is a separate water supply into this area. Which is... Oh, it's going to be such a headache. It's going to be fun. And it's going to be disaster. So that's an issue here. Now, this area is going to be a little bit different because we got to supply good quality water to the food factory. Luckily, we don't have to rebuild them. Also, the distillery over here. I don't think the distillery... This needs 13 cubic meters of water. Let me just see. I'm not... I don't want that. The distillery. Where is it? The distillery hasn't changed. So in knife edge here, what we're going to need to do is provide a very strong supply of water. And this is one area where I am going to be implementing water purification on the supply side. And then what we'll probably be doing is just dumping the sewage into here. So this has to be done. Now, if we come up to Foodville, where... See, this needs 93%. So what we could do is use water in this area, but without actually purifying it, because if we can get a good source that's... Let's see if we can find it. If I can get a good source of water, that's 94%. And we got 4% there. So if we could get a well here, we could supply this area with water that will also fulfill the requirements for the actual here. It's almost like these have picked it up automatically. And the livestock farms, let's just see. Quick look at livestock. These ones here. See, these don't have water condition connectors. So these are going to need to be supplied with 12 cubic meters of water. So we're going to need a lot of overcapacity there. And I'm aware that time is going on. And of course, what we got over here is fabric factories. And these are going to be fun because the fabric factory needs 11 cubic meters of water and it needs 85% purity. Again, we can supply that without actually cleaning up the water. So that's going to be possible. But again, and I know some of you will say, well, you're giving the people poor quality water. Well, we can fix that after we've actually got through and we don't take a complete population collapse. That's something I want to do. I don't think I'll talk that much about Colville or over here because I know this is all heavy industry. Because the final one I want to talk about is, of course, our primary centre here, where we've got the two food factories, and we certainly got to provide A1 water here. We can't bring it in from the outside. So this is one area where we, like knife edge, where we're going to have a lot of water and the capacity to get that done. And I suppose what I can do now is go for the destructive test and still keep talking. I'm not going to build anything. I'm not going to do anything at all. I'm just going to let the game run. And in fact, we'll run at high speed. We'll run at slow speed to start with, just to see what develops. And I'm trying to think of where there'd be a good place. I need a reasonable size population. Actually, let's just stick with knife edge. And what we're going to do now is run without water. Of course, one of the first things you're going to see is that this is now going to tell you that there's no drinking water in here and there's no water for production. So we can't produce anything now, despite the workforce, because we've got no water supply. And if we go into here, and you see it says there no drinking water. Now, one thing I did notice from another test is I just want to take a look at these. So these got even the old buildings, and we'll just look at modded buildings. This is all gone right across the board. So it means that even if you've got modded residential buildings, they're still going to have problems with water. And I think that also applies to schools. Let me just go over to Stilton. We got some modded schools over here. You can see that all these have automatically been given water capabilities. So you're not going to be able to dodge the drinking water issue just by thinking, well, I've got a few modded buildings, I'm okay. And probably a good example is if we come over to here, we come to Tourist Town, if I can find you. Where are you? Even these very basic buildings that don't have any heating still have a demand for drinking water. You can just see it there. And it actually kicks in quite quickly. You also see it says here workers can't work because of the kindergarten. And maybe this isn't probably maybe the best example. If we go to Colville, what you'll find is that what actually starts to happen, if we can find some schools or something like this, I think it's also hospitals and stuff, is that what happens is that if people don't have access to water, your productivity starts to fall. And more importantly, what you actually get is a drop in the capacity of the building. So like here, this shop was covering the whole of Colville. You can see already we've only done 2 or 3 days, and what's happening is that people aren't being served. Wow. So we've got a full staff in here now. We're only serving 100 people, and there's 500 people outside. And this seems to be the consequence of what's going to be the challenge. And we're already losing population. So let me just see. I've got a feeling this is going to be very painful. Well, it's kind of holding semi-steady, but we've only gone 10 days. So this is, and I think what happens is it starts to compound itself over time. So it seems to start with the food supplies there. And then I think if we click on here, what you'll see is it says 24 people can't enjoy culture. And so if we look at the overlay here for culture, an old opera house here. This one's still going full bore. Let me just see. We've got a cinema up here. Part of the problem is exactly the same as when you run out of food or clothes. What happens is that the populations keep looking for drinking water, so they don't do anything. So if we actually look here, well, it's not showing up here, but you see at the moment we're still quite strong. But I mean, just to speed the game up and see what happens. To Colville Hospital. There it says city demands work shift. They've just started their work shift. You can see the productivity is still pretty good, and we've already got happiness quite low somewhere. Look at that. So we're already starting to get a decay. Let me just see, because all this was pretty solid. Yeah, look at that. Wow, food, meat. So it looks almost like the problems hit straight away in the shopping. Yeah, because there's no. So it shows it's pretty fundamental to make sure that we got water in our actual shops. I mean, I could build loads and loads of extra shops, but that would all be a bit pointless. And we got a cultural problem as well, because people aren't going there. They're not going to culture, they're not going to sport. Of course, this won't show anything, because one thing I've noticed from a little bit of test play is that until you get water, you don't get sewage. So it kind of blocks up a little bit, and you can see the problem is all the drinking water. And you can see we've now starting to lose population quite dramatically. And of course, we've got no water connections. Oh, this is going to be painful. This is going to be painful. Let's have a look. The birth rate has gone through the basement. We've got escapes. The death rate is kind of way past. So it's almost like people are dying of thirst, aren't they? So it's not like you're going to get masses of escapees. You just got people dying of thirst. And it does look. You can see the population is literally spiraling down very, very quickly. And of course, once we run out of over 21s, then that will start to impact the rest of the population. We're only 17 days in. I'm just going to pause for a quick test, and I just want to see, look at something. I want to come in here, and we're going to buy a small water well, water treatment plant. At the moment it's the 17th of March, and we're going to build this is the large one. Yep. I mean, these are by far the biggest structures that we're going to need to do. So we're currently on the 17th of March. I'm going to put it on auto build. Is there any other big buildings that... I'm just going to go there. Other big buildings that we need. So we're not going to do sewage treatment. Sewage discharge. Can't build that there anyway. I think the rest of the sewage buildings are quite small. Most of the big buildings are actually in this area. I'm going to build a large water tower and a small water tower. As you may have guessed, is that I will be throwing this game away later on. And we're going to have a water tank as well. I know this isn't scientific. I just want to get a feel for... On the 17th of March. So this is all building relatively quickly on auto build. Although that took a day. Of course, the problem is that we use trucks. It takes days for trucks to move things around. So my original plan of using trucks to bring in water is a complete bust. That's obvious. But with sewage, as long as if I'm not going to be dumping the sewage directly into the water over here. In fact, let me just let's see if I can get a nice long run of. We'll do a bit of a test, shall we? Where would it be that I could? Oh, we'll go with Colville. So, and again, I want to emphasise this is just a little bit of a test to see if so say for example, we put sewage tank in there, press shift and control to get rid of the bits and pieces. If we say we put a pipe there, and then where's the outfall thingy bob? Discharge. Somewhere. And then we're going to go there. And we're going to get the biggest possible pipe. Pipe is above terrain at some stage. Oh, this is fun, isn't it? Right, we're just going to accept that. And we're up. Got a sometime on the 18th of March, and I just want to put this pipe in, and just build that. Apologies, you won't be able to see it very well, but I just want to see how quickly it will build this long runner pipe. That's finished. That's finished. Wow, it builds the pipe really quickly. That's good, because what it means is now we've got a... Well, one of the problems I have found is it's actually trying to find things as well. hook you up there. And we'll just build that. I can see it. Of course, you get absolutely nothing in here at the moment, simply because there's no, because until people get water, there's nothing. So if I can get everything on auto build, there's a chance I could build everything in one go. The problem's going to be is whether it all works properly first time with pipe connections and volumes. So I think what I'm going to have to do is do one town, save the game, test it, auto build it, and make sure everything works, and then go back, move to the next town after fixing any problems, and then doing it. And I'm gonna have to do that for 10 times. This is going to be fun. We've got 1.3 billion, so it's not like we have a cash problem. Well, we're just going to let the game keep running and see, because we're losing population. We're only 20 days in. This ambulance not arrived, and we are starting to lose population. Let's just have a look here. Yeah, you can see how quickly the problems are mapping up. I think that's the only way I'm going to do it, guys. And if you've got any suggestions, feel free to check this in the comments, because this is an absolute nightmare. We've got to get it all set up very quickly and running. And what I may have to do for the water purification is actually use or possibly auto purchase for chemicals, because it's going to take a little while to get for the trucks to deliver the chemicals as well. So what we may have to do is, actually I could manual purchase it. Can I? Let me see, just go back over. Where did I build that? We don't need auto purchase, do we? I build those buildings. Well, should be quite relatively easy to find, actually, come to think of it. All map, water facility. Take me to it, please. Oh, I built it up here. How much storage have you got for chemicals? You're telling me that you've got no storage for chemicals. The 8 tons of chemicals can be consumed 0.3, give me days. So yeah, what we'll have to do is prime these with manually purchased chemicals. I think that'd be better than auto purchase, so that we can ensure that things get in straight away. It's gonna be fun. Fun. Right, the population is absolutely tanking now, and we're only 27 days. Wow. So hopefully that's given an insight into the challenge that we're going to be taking on to get water in here, and it also hopefully explains the reason why I'm going to do it town by town, unless I can find some way to connect 2 towns together. Because the other thing that occurred to me is, well, you certainly won't be able to run. Let's just give it a try. I've never tried this. I would seriously doubt that you could. Improper slopes. There's no way you can run pipes over here. You'd need above ground pipes. Technically you could build a water supply there, but with that dip there, you'd need a lot of pressure to get the water to go down and come back up again. Actually, I've never done this before. So this dips down from about 20 meters down and back up to about 6.7 meters. So it's starting at 8.9, and technically it's going down to 0. So you could possibly pump water between 2 islands, but you certainly can't do it with sewage. The sewage is going to be the biggest challenge of all, and I think probably everyone's leaving. So what's the population now? Yeah, they're leaving. And you can see what's happening is the unemployment's building up as well. And that's part of the problem now, because all sorts of components are falling apart because the factories aren't working. Again, if we go over to here, all my food factories are producing nothing. You can see here because they've got no water. It could be possible if I got the happiness really high, but you can see the happiness is now 18%. So a big factor is going to be productivity. The productivity is 30%. I mean, the government loyalty is still holding up high. Clothing. I mean, at the moment, everything's holding up because I've got everything is well stocked. But you can see because people are getting very unhappy because they can't get access to everything else. That's the death spiral. Anyway, guys, this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting. As I say, any comments, opinions on how I can do this and pull it off, feel free to chuck it in the comments. What I will warn you in the upcoming videos, there's going to be a lot of trial and error, frustration, and hopefully I won't rage quit on this, even if I have to spend hours off camera trying to sort it all out. But until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.